Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I am Scott Corum. This book matters to me. I got some really good feedback last week. Folks wanted me to talk a little bit about the victory system, my role-playing game that I published some years back. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk about the victory system. Next few weeks, I'm going to do some material on how to play the victory system and get your most out of it, how it's played, what it's about. I want to script those out a little bit more, have some visual aids, have some things to make me proud about how I'm presenting this. So I'm going to take an extra week to put materials together for that. In the meantime, I want to talk a little bit about the very bare bones basics of TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games. Most role-playing games have a section at the beginning of them about what a role-playing game is. Best, most basic description of that I have heard to date. Tabletop role-playing games are playing make-believe with rules. That's really good. From the activity of playing make-believe, you watch a movie or a TV show, and that's a great story. I like to tell stories like that. I'd like to walk around in that world. I'd like to do some stuff like that. Maybe it's a story. Maybe I turn left where that character turned right. A whole bunch of what ifs. So you pretend you're that character. You're pretending you're that character. You're a character that you saw, or you pretend you're a character from that world that you have made up. You are fan fiction. And you work out, well, what's this character's story? What can they do? What can they not do? What are their limitations? And someone has to, well, you know what? You're all characters. Let me tell you what you see when you walk in the bar. And describes the scene. And there's a big guy on the far side and doesn't look very happy with you. What are you going to do? And that's where the rubber meets the road. The question, what do you do? The players are the people who are taking on characters, the player characters. So you've got the people at the table who are the players and the fictional characters that they're playing, the player characters. And then you've got one person who is in charge of everything else that's happening in that world. That's the game master. You can have a small number of players, 1 or 2, or 5 or 6. I've had 10 or 12 on my table, but that was an exercise in keeping people at the table. And then one game master, usually. So how do you know what they can do or what they don't do? Well, it depends on the system that you're using, but often it's broken down into attributes. Everyone's got strength, intelligence, dexterity, things that determine how strong they are, or fast, or how smart they are. And those numbers generated randomly, either generated randomly or assigned. You've got a number of points to spend, or you only have so many stats you can put in, and everyone's got slightly different numbers. And those numbers determine how good you are at stuff. How good you are at swinging an axe, or shooting a gun, or singing a song, or hacking a computer. You can boil that down to, some formula based on that. Every game does it differently. But there's always a chance at some point of success or failure. For 99.99% of the role-playing games out there, a dice will determine your success. There are diceless systems. They use cards or even just use logic to determine success or failure. A random number generator is the most common way to do it. Dice are very good for that. A D20 is popular because it's easily broken down to percentiles. You can understand the math pretty easily. Just multiply your result by 5 and you've got a percentile. Roll the dice. You succeed or you fail. The game master tells you what happens as a result of your success or your failure. Everyone's gone around the table. The game master gives you a fresh scene. This is what happens as a result of all of your actions. And you start over again. Lather, rinse, repeat, then the cycle, and this is how the story occurs. Bit at a time, you get taken to other scenes or other actions or things progress, and you have your story. Uh, Games can come in a couple of varieties. Sometimes they use a map to tell you where everything, if you're in combat or trying to determine where everyone is standing and what everyone is doing and what your lines of sight are, a map is really handy for that. So you get a map and you put little tokens or miniatures on it, depending on what your budget is that week, and work out. Well, I can take that shot, so I'll roll my dice. Or you've got a really good game master who has a ability to really paint the scene in everyone's head, and you can do something called theater of the mind, where you just describe where everyone is at and take your shots based on that, as opposed to the map. Personal preference, how the group wants to do it. It sounds simple. It kind of is, and it kind of isn't. Uh, you can find every different role playing game out there has a different way of handling these elements. Some of them might be similar, but they all have their own mechanics and their own rules. And you can pick those up. Once you've picked up one set of rules, picking up another set of rules isn't that difficult. You kind of get a hang for what is out there and what kind of stuff has to be addressed to get this game played. It's collaborative storytelling. It is a number of different systems, all of which facilitate collaborative storytelling. You're all telling a story together. None of you has all of the story. Not if the game master has all of the story, because you're telling that story together. No one knows what everyone else is going to do. By the end of the activity, you all have a story no one else has ever had before. And now you've got that story to tell and new stories to build on from that. You can have a one-shot game where you tell a little bit about characters you're never going to see again. That might form history for something else, or that might just be that one popcorn game. Every so often you talk about how well that went. The size of the explosions, or the number of bodies, or how many people got seduced in that particular adventure. Sometimes I told all three of those stories at once. For every genre out there, there is a role playing game. There is, no matter what your interests are. The sword and sorcery stuff has been very popular and has kind of been in the public eye, but science fiction, cyberpunk, gothic romance, steampunk, all of these things have role playing games. If there's a movie or a genre out there, there is probably a role playing game that reflects it. Some of them will have wide variations on the model that I've talked about, but you'll see the elements there at some point. Uh, and I love this activity because I'm a storyteller at heart, and there's a whole bunch of stories I could never get out of my head. And now I can not only get these stories out of my head because I have this medium, but other people can walk around in my stories. My stories don't stay my stories, they are our stories after a while because there's other people who've contributed to them. The stuff in my head doesn't stay the same because people have walked around, kicked the tires, engaged in my worlds, and changed them for better or worse. Usually better. I play with some good people. And the only way you're really going to find out what you like is to pick some up and try it. You might need to find some people to do this with. You can find folks online or friendly local gaming store, college campus. I've left my name and number on a couple of cork boards in gaming stores. I don't think that's going to work very well anymore, but plenty of online options for doing it now. LFG, looking for group posts, will guide you to some folks who are looking to put together groups for role playing games. Uh, I have a lot of resources online for doing that exactly. Be careful, but that's not a terrible place to look. I game online. My Wednesday night group. We meet on Discord these days. Just a lot easier, and get together every so often when we can. But our games are usually online. We've got some tools to help facilitate that. That's the basics, the bare bone basics. Uh, You can find a game in a genre you like, you make up your characters, someone has to be the game master, which is a hard job at the table and the most rewarding one there. If you're the big storyteller, if you've got the big picture in your head, that's probably your job. And you tell the story. Plenty of adventures out there to get you started. For every game out there, there's adventures written for it and things to help guide you in, set up the scene, and here's the people you can meet, and here's what can happen, and here's how things progress. And if you don't have a story in your head to tell from this, there's stories out there that you can tell and get a start on, which can either lead you to tell your own stories or maybe even write some of your own stuff. Or you can just carry on because there's plenty of adventures out there. There's people writing adventures right now for games that you probably want to play. Nice big cottage industry, and you might want to get involved in picking up on one end of it or the other. I think that's it. I think that's the core basics, the things that I would most want to cover. If you have any questions on that, well, if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you did enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Any questions that you have, anything I left unsaid that you think needed to be said, absolutely. Let me know down below. Things you'd like to hear me talk about, questions you'd like to hear me cover. Please leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. You might want to hit the subscribe button. If you do, you probably also want to hit the notification bell so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you'd like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps, allows me to make better videos more often. Also, as I produce role-playing game material, I will share that with my patrons over time. My patrons have access to me on the Discord, and I will go to them for suggestions or editing help or any number of things. And probably get your name in a book at some point in time, and certainly get a copy of the books that I produce. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I'll see you next time in the next Matters of DeCorum.